Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading Bhagavad-Gita as it is, chapter 7, text number 22, right? 22. Sataya Shradaya Yuktas Tasya Radhanam Ihate Labhate cha tata karnan Labhate cha tata kaman Mayaiva vihitan hitan. Sa, he, taya, with that. Shradaya, inspiration. Yukta, endowed. Tasya, of that demigod. Aradhanam, for the worship. Ihate, he aspires. Labhyate, obtains. Cha, and. Tata, from that. Kaman, he desires. His desires. Maya, by me. Eva, alone. Vihitan, arranged. He, certainly. Tan, those. Endowed with such a faith, he endeavors to worship a particular demigod and obtains his desires. But in actuality, these benefits are bestowed by me alone. Repeat. Endowed with such a faith, he endeavors to worship a particular demigod and obtains his desires. But in actuality, these benefits are bestowed by me alone. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The demigods cannot award benedictions to their devotees without the permission of the Supreme Lord. The living entity may forget that everything is the property of the Supreme Lord, but the demigods do not forget. So the worship of demigods and achievement of desired results are due not to the demigods, but to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by arrangement. The less intelligent living entity does not know this, and therefore he foolishly goes to the demigods for some benefit. But the pure devotee, when in need of something, prays only to the Supreme Lord. Asking for material benefit, however, is not a sign of a pure devotee. A living entity goes to the demigods usually because he is mad to fulfill his lust. This happens when something undue is desired by the living entity and the Lord himself does not fulfill the desire. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that one who worships the Supreme Lord and at the same time desires material enjoyment is contradictory in his desires. Devotional service to the Supreme Lord and the worship of a demigod cannot be on the same platform. Because worship of a demigod is material and devotional service to the Supreme Lord is completely spiritual. For the living entity who desires to return home to Godhead, material desires are impediments. A pure devotee of the Lord is therefore not awarded the material benefits desired by less intelligent living entities, who therefore prefer to worship demigods of the material world rather than engage in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord. Om Jnana Timarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistang Stapitang Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Didati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalang Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatang Vitam Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitangscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gauranye Radhe Vrindavaneshware Vrishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vanchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Just like the last verse here, I am in everyone's heart as a super soul. As soon as one desires to worship some demigod, I make his faith steady so that he can devote himself to that particular deity. Endowed with such faith, he endeavors to worship a particular demigod and obtains his desires. But in actuality, these benefits are bestowed by me alone. So this is what Srila Prabhupada came to give us, the essence of the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the 6 Goswamis. Because everyone in this material world has some desires and aspirations. That's why we come to the material world, to try to fulfill our desires. And due to our past karma, karmana daivanatrena, we've been given a particular body with a certain family, certain nation, certain inclinations, likes and dislikes. So it's difficult to understand how I can try to fulfill my desires in this world, but at the same time be free from the desire to have material desires and go back home to the spiritual world. Because I remember when I, as a brahmachari, the enthusiasm of just following Prabhupada's program. Prabhupada very scientifically set it up that we get up early in the morning, see the beautiful lordships, dance, chant and dance, and we have the special medicine, the chanting of the Lord's holy name, and then hearing, constant hearing and philosophy, just like Parikshit Maharaj in the 10th canto, when Shukadeva Goswami was describing so many incredible pastimes of the Lord, one after another, that he's freed these kings and he killed this demon and he did away with these bogus military so-called kshatriyas or leaders who were causing so much disturbance to society. I mean, Krishna and Balaram's pastimes are quite incredible. But that's what we expect. God is inconceivable. He's the most powerful, the most beautiful, the most renounced, the wealthiest, and the funniest. He has all the attributes in full. And even though Shukadeva Goswami is one after another presenting beautiful pastimes, Parikshit Maharaj said, please tell me more. I want to hear more. Even things that I didn't ask about. Generally when you ask questions, you want your questions answered. But Parikshit Maharaj is so enthusiastic, he said, you can tell me other things that I have not asked about, because if it pertains to the glories of the Lord, this is so satisfying, so fulfilling. But it's a matter of, if I have a dollar bill, $1 bill, I said, here, no, I will take your dollar bill, but I'll give you $100. Now, if you believe me and you see the $100 in my hand, you might say, oh, that's a really good deal, $1. And Krishna is just saying, some basic rules and regulations, stay in the association of devotees, keep hearing about me, satitang kirtayanto mangyatantas chadridvrita, that, just always chanting my glories with firm determination. Then we can actually try to make some progress. But we see the demons, or those who are desirous to dominate this material world, they worship various other gods, perform various sacrifices. There's a Kali Puja. Lord Shiva, he always has his group of, he's Ashutosh, he's very easily pleased, but he can also become very angry very quickly. We know a lot of people like that. But Lord Shiva is powerful. He's the father of the material world. He's an incarnation of Krishna. He's just like Krishna, but not Krishna. He has a certain role. So everything is Krishna, starting from the Karano Dakshai Vishnu. There's a small portion in the spiritual world where the criminals are hanging out, the prison house. And so the Lord, yes, okay, let me facilitate them, but he does things in a big way. From the Karana ocean, he produces unlimited universes. Just imagine, he's lying there in the ocean and so many universes are coming from the pores of his body, simply just by breathing. Okay, now next step, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. I need to go into each and every universe, lay down in that universe, and then create. Every endeavor needs a manager, isn't it? Everything needs a leader. Every endeavor or venture needs some leadership. So Krishna is the leader of everyone. He's a supreme master. But still he creates Lord Brahma, the first created being. And depending on the size of the universe, Lord Brahma has different features so he can accommodate how to create. Because there's a huge variety of living entities with so many desires to be fulfilled. And Krishna's not cheap, everything, to the minute detail. You want to be a Brahma, you want to be a demigod, you want to be a good progenitor, you want to be a king, a powerful king, king of kings. You see sometimes in the movie series that, especially the King of England, there's, maybe so many kingdoms, and one who's like Yudhishthira Maharaj was the king of kings, and everyone had to pay tribute to Yudhishthira Maharaj. So these are all very high posts and designations. And what to speak of wealth, education, I want beauty. The cosmetic industry is multi-trillion, $billion. Yes, we will, you just put this cream on, all the wrinkles will go away. And you just buy this one mantra. I was also interested in yoga meditation early, and I saw Maharishi Mahesh Yogi on the television. He was doing some interview. And this is simply by this mantra, you can actually expand your consciousness. And I just started university at the time, And so I thought, yes, so $35, you buy the mantra, TM, I was going to the classes called SCI, some high philosophy or consciousness. But there are cheaters and cheated in this material world, because we do have an inclination towards spiritual life. We do want to be happy. We do want to have, in one sense, like superpowers. When we hear about the great mystics, everyone's enamored by Superman, Batman. Anyone who has extraordinary power is very attractive. So Krishna is the most powerful. And even in this material world, we want to, grease the palm of our boss. It's who you know. It's not what you know, it's who you know. In the political field, people worship other strong politicians. I even saw on Facebook one time in India, someone had a picture of Trump and worshiping, saying that the president is a representative of God. Which is ideally the king, Rajarshi, is the representative of God, and that is if they actually have the godly qualities. Then by doing your duty and serving the king, you can actually perform your duty properly, so that the varnashrama charvita purushena parakpumandit, that your sacrifice is being channeled and offered to the Supreme Lord, just like Yudhishthira Maharaj is performing a great yajna, great sacrifice, ultimately pleasing the demigods. But beyond pleasing the demigods, it was meant for Vishnu, because all sacrifice is meant for Lord Vishnu. The gopis during Kartik were worshipping Katyayani, the goddess. In one sense, that's like demigod worship. But their objective was not just to get any husband, or it wasn't just to have a long, prosperous life, many good children, good family. They wanted Krishna. They actually wanted Krishna as their husband, or just to be together with Krishna. So, although there are intricacies and there are definitely difficulties in beating the mind, because the mind is always giving us some different angles and different ideas how we can be the enjoyer, and it's like trying to light a fire and pouring water on it at the same time. It's difficult. So if we just follow Krishna consciousness the way Srila Prabhupada has given it to us, and we've already have a grand head start just by being in Sri Vrindavan Dham. This is non-different than the spiritual world, although we may not be able to see traffic or maybe some pollution and all the noise and different aspects that may bring us to a mundane platform. This is external. This is to drive the atheists and non-believers. But actually, if we can develop our sadhana, and this is regulation. Sadhana bhakti means getting regulated. I remember I started playing drums when I was young, like 10, 11 years old, and there was drum lessons. So you would go regularly to the teacher, you'd perform your lesson nicely, and then you progress day by day more and more, and you stay steady with it. Because vyavastayatmaka buddhir ekeha kurunandana bahushaka hinantascha buddhayo vyavasayanam. Devotee becomes resolute in his purpose, and he's focused on the goal, and he's determined to achieve it. Just like we see so many people, they say, I made my wealth, I made my riches, I worked really hard and I established this business, and they perform great austerities and determination. Even in the sports field, whether it's gymnastics, ballet, or as a performer, musician, as an artist. In so many ways, if you stay steady with your lessons and you It's like the drop of water on the rock. If the water keeps dripping, and it gradually wears a groove into that rock. So we want that. This sadhana bhakti, is very important for us, because the spontaneous platform, it takes time to awaken. It'd be nice if whenever material desires come, we could just kick them out and always be in a proper frame of mind, humbly, enthusiastically serving the Guru and Krishna, eager to chant our rounds, eager to hear more and more about Krishna and Krishna's pastimes. So this is the idea of demigod, and demigod worship is just a temporary fix. Indra was being worshipped even by the inhabitants of Vrindavan, because they understood that Indra is providing the rain, the clouds. He's providing the nourishment for all our plants, and for Krishna to tell them that no, actually, Govardhan, that the Supreme Lord, Indra is just a servant. But it said here that they never forget. The demigods, it says, the living entity may forget that everything is the property of the Supreme Lord, but the demigods do not forget. That there's Indra forgot. Lord Brahma, he also was given a test. So sometimes for Leela, Krishna's Leela, and so that he can keep his servants humble, when Indra realized what he did and how he did, obviously he felt totally, but what he did was very, very dangerous, wanting to kill all the residents of Vrindavan. And we can't understand how Krishna's compassion. And Lord Brahma, to steal all the cowherd boys and calves and play a trick on Krishna, but Krishna expanded himself in such a way that it bewildered Lord Brahma's mind. So Ekale Ishvar Krishna Arsa Britya. Krishna is the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Proprietor. There's no one greater than or equal to Krishna. He's the Supreme Lord. Arjuna said, Parang Brahma, Parang Dhamma, Pavitrang, Paramang Bhavan, Purusham, Shashvatam, Divyam, Adi Devam, Ajam Vibhum. You are the supreme abode, the purifier, the topmost supreme person. So Bhagavad-Gita is our anchor, and by hearing Bhagavad-Gita systematically, from the Guru Parampara, from Krishna's and Krishna's devotees, then we can actually be inspired to carry on our devotional service. We had a good program in Govardhan today. I came back and I thought, oh, I'm tired. What am I going to talk about today, huh? Huh? No, well, I didn't do the full parikrama. No, I just went for the program. It was very nice. We were glorifying all the devotees. Yeah, they did. They work hard. I'm just going to read a couple of the verses prior to that. All these devotees are undoubtedly magnanimous souls, but he who is situated in knowledge of me, I consider to be just like my own self. Being engaged in my transcendental service, he is sure to attain me, the highest and most perfect goal. Bahunang jamanamante gyanavan mang prapajate vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. So Krishna is laying it out that we've gone through so many lifetimes, birth after birth, and while executing devotional service for many, many births, one comes finally to the conclusion, the ultimate goal of self-realization is to surrender to Krishna. Those whose intelligence had been stolen by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. But in Kali Yuga, we don't have that ability. We don't know how to worship, even the demigod worship. So Krishna, he's very kind. He says, Akama sarva kamo va moksha kamo dadaditi vrena bhakti yogena yajeta purushang param. It says, less intelligent people who have lost their spiritual sense take shelter of demigods for immediate fulfillment of material desires. Generally, such people do not go to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because they're in the lower modes of nature, ignorance and passion, and therefore they worship various demigods. And the last two verses. I am in everyone's heart as a super soul. As soon as one desires to worship some demigod, I make his faith steady so he can devote himself to that particular deity. Endowed with such a faith, he endeavors to worship a particular demigod and obtains his desires, but in actuality, these benefits are bestowed by me alone. So after this chapter in knowledge of the Absolute, then Krishna goes to the next chapter, attaining the Supreme. The most confidential knowledge. So systematically, step by step, Krishna is revealing to Arjuna all the different trapments of this world, not necessarily just for Arjuna's sake, but for all of our sake. That when Krishna says, think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and surrender unto me, that you are my friend, I will protect you. And if you also endeavor to give this knowledge of Krishna consciousness to others, you're very, very dear to me. So he's giving us a hint that by working for Krishna, by endeavoring to give this knowledge of Krishna consciousness to others, it makes us more satisfied and also helps those who are lost in this material world of repeated birth, death, old age, and disease. And whatever time we've come to Krishna consciousness, it's a good time, perfect time, because Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda are there. The holy name is ever fresh, and Krishna Balaram, Radha Shyama Sundari Vishaka Devi, and the devotees, they're here to encourage us in our devotional pursuit of attaining love for Krishna. And Prabhupada guarantees that if you follow this process of bhakti-yoga in the association of devotees living in the holy dham, that you will also awaken that love for Krishna. So we have that faith, and we should patiently carry out our duties nicely in Krishna consciousness. So now I have to hear from anybody who has any questions. Yes, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thanks.
Krishna sent you because you always have good questions.
See, when Krishna was small boy, he stopped his father from worshipping Indra.
Yes.
But here he is grown up and is allowing Yudhishthira Maharaj to do this last sacrifice to satisfy the demigods.
Mm-hmm.
So can you explain why this difference?
So the question is that when he was a small boy, he convinced Nanda Maharaj and all the cowherd men that they should not worship the demigods but surrender unto him. And then Yudhishthira Maharaj performing the Rajasuya sacrifice, which which worships, but also ultimately the ultimate end of that worship is Vishnu, Krishna. Because he's established paritranaya sadhunang vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma sangstarpanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So he's annihilating miscreants and demons, and he's reestablishing religious principles. So the king has responsibility, and he has duties, and he's showing that everyone should carry out their duty, but the ultimate end of their duty is Vishnu, is Krishna. You know, Jagnat, is that one verse? That all our sacrifices are ultimately meant for the worship of Vishnu. So Krishna may encourage or allow, of course, the gopis, like I said, were worshipping Katyayani, and Krishna allowed. And Rajasuya sacrificed because he's the emperor, and he's utilizing his resources to worship the administrators, but the ultimate controller administrator is Vishnu. So like that, I think just to establish the fact that we have to carry out our duties and responsibilities according to our position in this material world.
What is the definition of a demigod?
A demigod is a controller, working, empowered, living entity who has been given administrative responsibilities by the Supreme Lord to assist in the administration of the universal affairs. It's not that Krishna can't, but Krishna is also the demigods, because everything is coming from Krishna, but because different living entities want that position, or they may achieve it by their sacrifice and by their activities, Krishna empowers them and puts them in administrative positions to carry out the universal management. But technically, generally, the demigods are aware of Krishna's supremacy and they're obedient. But that the life in the heavenly planets, you can see there's always so much intrigue between the demigods and the demons, and sometimes Indra steals, this wife and that wife, and we're hearing of various complex social interactions even in the heavenly planets.
So it's more like a karma thing.
Yeah, karma and adivanatrena, that if you have that desire to be like an Indra, you can become like the post of Indra, isn't it?
Yeah, post.
Huh?
They are post.
Posts, yeah, yes.
They have unlimited power.
According to their responsibility, that they consider Lord Brahma as the head of all the demigods, but then Lord Shiva, even though the son of Brahma, is considered even more powerful than Brahma, than Indra, the king of heaven. So he's the king, but then you have Kuvera, who's the treasurer, he's very powerful, and Arun, then you got the sun god, the wind god. You got many different gods who take care of different aspects. They're not unlimitedly powerful, but they have enough power to carry out their respective duties. Yes, Mother.
Thank you so much for the class. So what is the difference between the yajnas that make the devotees? So in these yajnas, they also make some kind of worship to the demigods?
Yes. Just like Daksha was performing yagyas, sacrifices, and there's shares of the sacrifice to the prominent demigods who are providing necessities of human life, for human sustenance. The sun god and Indra and the different gods, as we heard, they're providing all the necessities. So that's a beginning point, that we have to perform these sacrifices because people are not to the point where they can actually fully surrender, accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and fully dedicate themselves to that. Generally, in other ages, in particular, there's different types of worship for achieving spiritual advancement. You know, we've heard in Satya Yuga they sit in meditation, and Treta Yuga there's elaborate deity worship, or the yagyas, elaborate yagyas performance. In Dwapara Yuga, the deity worship started, the temples, and you see all the grand temples in India, South India, this and that, from the beginning of Kali Yuga. But in this age, none of these worships are recommended. This Kali Yuga recommended simply Kali Kaler Dosha Nidhe Rajan, that there's only one good thing in this age of Kali. Simply by chanting the holy names of the Lord, one can achieve the results of all yagyas. There's another verse, Aho bata shvapachoto gariyan yad jivagre vartate namatubhyam te pustapas te juhuvur shashnaraya. He said that one who chants the holy name of the Lord, he performed all yagyas, all sacrifices. He's considered to have already done all the preliminary rituals that may be required for gradual advancement, because it's like one is chanting the name of the Lord with focus and enthusiasm and love, then he's already performed all these other yagyas. We don't know how, but we're very fortunate to be able to take up the process of chanting the holy name.
So it means it's not necessary the yagyas at all.
No, but if you don't have the guru to give you the Maha Mantra, and for you to accept it, then there are certain rules and regulations. It's like if you don't pay your electric bill, they shut your electricity off. If you don't pay your water bill, they shut your water off. So just for the basic necessities, this way you can still carry on your life according to how you want to. That's why we're in the material world, because we're individuals wanting to enjoy this world. So by worshiping demigods, we can achieve the things of this world that we think will make us happy, but ultimately they will not. So Krishna is saying that, I make your faith strong, worship the demigods, you can achieve power, wealth, and beauty, but this is not the purpose or goal, because ultimately you're going to grow old, get diseased, and die, and then again you have to suffer your karma. So it's like a child that's, I want the candy, okay, take it. But then it's not good for the child, but the parent gives in because of the demanding nature of the child. So we're all little children screaming out, I want this, I want that. Okay, this is the way to get those things. You do this. But at the end, those are people of small intelligence, because one who's really intelligent will worship me and perform the ultimate bhakti. Yoginam api sarvesham madgate nantaratmana. Of all yogis, he who abides in me with great faith and worship me with love and devotion, he's the highest of all. So Krishna, Srila Prabhupada brought us to the very top, but we have to appreciate it or take proper advantage of it, and not get diverted or sidetracked thinking that, no, I should, if I worship some demigod, I'll quickly get my reward. But the real reward is coming from Krishna.
There are groups like Mayavad or different other groups like Transcendental Meditation. If you're chanting Mahamantra,
Yeah, there's a lot of, I have a yoga studio in New York. We have a little bed and breakfast. And I'd be in the office and I'd hear them, Om, and then they would chant sometimes the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. But because they're not following rules and regulations, the mantra is powerful, it has full potency. But if one is, just living the lifestyle of, slaughtering the animals, or having illicit relationships, taking intoxication. It's like I said, trying to start a fire by pouring water on it. There's great benefit in chanting the holy name, but now we have to fine-tune it by cleaning our own behavior, our own activities, coming to a Brahminical platform. Like I told that story of Roma Harshan, although he was born, his father was a Kshatriya, his mother was a Brahmana, and the sages of Naimisharanya appointed him as the head priest. And as long as he behaves like a Brahmana and a spiritual leader, that this is fine. We're all born as Shudras, Kalau Sudra Sambhava. We're all born in low families, or maybe not everyone, but the majority in Kali Yuga, we don't come from Brahminical families or a spiritual culture. But by the process of bhakti given to us by Prabhupada, that he said, I can make you Brahmanas. We're trying to bring people out from the modes of ignorance, passion, and so-called goodness, and bring them to Vishuddha Sattva, the transcendental platform. And although others may be chanting Hare Krishna, that's very nice, but they will not, how they say, progress is very slow if we do not follow the recommended rules and regulations to help us ignite the fire of Krishna consciousness.
And then also I can the mantra coming through Parampara is more powerful than mantra used by other people.
Well, the mantra is powerful in all aspects, but one's utilization and ability to perceive it. Just like if you have a very thin covering on your eyes, you can still see the light, but if you put a heavy cloth, the light is still powerful, but because you're so covered, you cannot see or appreciate the results. So this is, we're saying that we're Cheto Darpana Marjanang Bhava Mahadevagni Nirvapa. We have to clean the heart, clean the eyes, clean the mind, so that we can actually perceive and allow the rays of the holy name to penetrate the heart. The holy name is potent at all times, but our reception and our ability to absorb the mantra and utilize it for developing awakening our love, that it takes time to the practice of cleaning. So we got to clean the heart. It said non-envious. Krishna describes the one who's not jealous, who is kind to everyone, very tolerant, merciful, peaceful, clean. So he's giving the basic characteristics of one who is a proper recipient for advancing in spiritual life, that one who develops these godly qualities, and not saying that, okay, I'll be tolerant, I'll be merciful, but we'll still catch ourselves being intolerant and not so merciful, and sometimes being swayed by the mind. But we have to clearly understand that we need to meditate on what are the qualities of a devotee, a Vaishnava, and learn to be grateful with gratitude to Prabhupada. He's given us such a valuable gift. And that gratitude and that feeling of obligation that, Prabhupada served us all so nicely. He's given us so much wonderful Vedic literature and given us everything necessary for our stopping the suffering in this material world. So that should become an impetus of gratitude to Prabhupada, that I also want to do something to help, even for my own self, but also if it gives Prabhupada great pleasure. I say, what gives you pleasure, Prabhupada? That you become Krishna conscious, that you chant the holy name of the Lord and become a devotee of the Lord. This makes Krishna happy. So Lord Chaitanya demanded that everyone go out and preach and give this message of Krishna consciousness. Any other questions?
So is India the only place where demigods are worshipped?
No, they had. I was in Miami about 35, 40 years ago, and we were doing home programs, and I met quite a few nice Indian people who had a whole altar full of demigods, and they have their little puja and they're regulated. So it's not just in India, but because the Vedic culture is so prevalent in all the philosophers and the ancient Vedic literature are originally from India, so we get definitely more of a directive that way. Because how old is America? 250 years old, or it's like, although the Indians prior to the Europeans taking over had their various worship of the sun and worship of the wind god. And if you read a little bit about the ancient cultures, even the Aztecs, the South American, the Vikings, this one, that one, they all worship gods, because any person who can appreciate that someone's giving me the necessities of life, so they give, and according to their scripture and their limited understanding, they're all God worshippers, demigod worshippers. But when the Lord himself comes and sends his representative and very clearly explains that, okay, the demigods are my representatives, so you can bypass all that and come right to the top. No need, because life is short, no sense in wasting our time trying to just get cheap favors from the demigods when we can get the highest goal. Like Dhruva Maharaj said, that I was looking for broken pieces of glass, but you've given me the highest transcendental gift that there is. So we're just trying to avoid the entrapments of being sidetracked by demigod worship, which is temporary and limited, and ultimately they cannot give you anything unless Krishna sanctions it. So Krishna is the ultimate sanctioner. All right. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.